So that's good. Tonight we are dealing with HTML forms, and let's see why we need a form. You see, before now we've looked at an input, and I told us that when you are dealing with an input, you have different type here. You have type text, you have type email, you have type date, and all of that. Now, what you use a form for is that you use it to collect many input, like a collection of input. See a form like normal form, I mean the hard copy of form. When you are given a form, you will have an input for maybe an input for your first name, an input for your last name, an input for your email address, and all of that. So a form is like collection of inputs. In that form, the owner of that form wants to collect a lot of information from you. So that's the same thing we're about to do. We want to collect many information from users. So the collection of these inputs now is what we call form. So let's see how to do that. Normally this is enough to write inputs. Let's say I just want to take input type text. Let me run this on the browser. So this is the input here, and users can type inside the inputs. So users can type inside this input and it looks fine. But then let's look at something. Some things are wrong with these inputs. Remember, in our subsequent classes, we've always considered users that are using screen readers while visiting our page. We've always considered them. Again tonight, we will also do that. So writing this, you aren't considering them. So let's put them into consideration. Instead of just saying input, instead we say label form. So I can call this any name. Let me say I call it first name, and I can say I will explain everything here. First name, or enter your first name. I can just say enter your first name. Then I will now come here and create an input. If I want it to be type text, I will remove this name and give it ID. So let's explain what you have on the page. You see, this label is before now we've only been using this one. We've not used label. Now the essence of this label is this. What you have here is what will be displayed to you on the screen. Let's run it. Enter your first name. That is what will be displayed on the screen. Well, we could have added, let me just copy this. We could have added this instead. We can actually remove all of this, all this old label, and just put it like this, and we still have the same result. As you can see, we have the same result. We remove the whole label and just put the text there, and it's fine. But the difference is this. This label for, there is this, you put a text here called first name. You will go to your input and give it an ID. Whatever text you put here should also be the ID of that input. I will explain why that is important. Whatever text you put inside this for must also be the ID of your input. Remember, I told us that an ID should be unique. When we dealt with anchor tag, when we looked at anchor tag, I explained to us that an ID should be unique, meaning that a single item should have one ID. Multiple items should not share the same ID. So that the same principle still holds. ID is meant to be unique, and whatever you put here should be the ID of this input. Now, when people using screen reader, when they get to your page, it will read out this to them. It will read out this first name. And whenever they click on it, it automatically brings them to this input. I come again. The essence of this label is because of those using screen reader. to visit your page. So you give this label for, this is an attribute for, this will be a text, then the ID of your input will be the same as whatever text you have there. So this will be read out to those people that are using screen reader. It looks useless to us because you can see the page, but those using screen reader cannot see your page. So instead, they rely on the screen reader to read out information for them. So the screen reader will read out this, and when they click on this or when they tap on this, instantly it will bring them to this input. Let's try that. I will click on this text, and as you can see, it has moved me to the input. It has moved me to the input. So let's create another one again. I'll create another label. I can call this label for last name, meaning I must create an input with an ID of last name. I must create an input with an ID of last name. But then you can put some text there. Whatever text you put here is what will be displayed on the screen. This is what will be displayed on the screen, but this is because of those using screen reader, so that when they get to this place, it will read this out to them, and they will know that an input is here. And when they tap on this, it automatically bring them to this input. Okay, let's go to the browser. So when I tap on this now, it will bring me to the last name, and when I tap on this, it will take me to this input. Any question? We can also make this maybe a bit neater by just doing something like this. First name, I think, then last name, then puts colon here. Then you may want this to be on another line. You can do something like this. We've looked at the break tag. I thought that the break will break it to the next line. So that we have this, then you can break this also to break it to the next. Oh, sorry, let me break this. Then you can also break this. So I think this is a bit cool. So this break is just to break this to the next line, so that there will be a space between this and this. Then this break will ensure that there's a space between this and this. Then this break will ensure that there's a space between this and this. So I think this is maybe neater. Now remember at the beginning of this class I said a form is a collection of inputs, and you can ask me that where is the form? We've not used the form. So whenever you are getting inputs like this, it's cool that you put it inside a form. So this is a form. So all of this now will be inside this form. Let me just do this like this. So this means everything here, they are together. They are part of a single form. That's what this means. Everything here, they are together. So imagine you are giving out a form, and in that form there is a place to fill the first name, and there's another place to fill last name. So let's assume in my form we have other things. Email address, you can say email, then okay. Then the ID, of course ID should be unique. Two items should not share the same ID. So ID here. Okay. So we have the email. Let's add one more password. I'll just copy this and paste. Then I'll say password. Then input for password. then input type, I'll make this to be type password, then the ID will password. Okay, so let's run it and see if it's cool. Email address, we can say, since we are taking email, we can use type email here. We can run this on the screen now. Oh, let's adjust this. So let's break this. I think we can put a break here. We will still adjust this thing. We have other things to still learn tonight. Oh, email, that's after last name. Okay, I think this is cool now. So far we've placed all of this inside a single form, and when you place inputs like this inside a form, what you are just saying is all of these inputs are together. You are getting them together as a single form, and I've explained the essence of this label for that's because of those using screen readers visiting our page. Why building, this is 2022, why building website is very important that you consider those using screen readers. It's very, very important. So let's move on. Next is this. I want to submit this form, all of this form, like everything inside this form. You know, this is a form. This is the beginning of the form, and this is the end of the form. I want to submit this form. So I'll come here and say input, but instead of using type text or type email or type password on all of that, I can use a different type called input type submit. Input type submit. This input type submit will give you something that looks like a button. Let's go to the browser. So this, when I click on this submit, it will submit that form. When I click on this, it will submit that form. So let's fill it. And when I click on it, it will try to submit that form. Now, as you can see, it's as though it's not submitting the form. Let me explain what is going on. Well, we asked it to submit the form without telling it where the form should be submitted to. Yes, this submit to submit the form, but the question is to where? Where is it submitting to? So you come here and you put an attribute at the beginning here inside this form called action. The action is the location or where the form will be submitted to. So that when you submit this form, you want it to be submitted somewhere. So you can submit it that to maybe something. Process.php. Just this, you have to get a file called process.php. What you are saying is this: when I click on this button, submit this form to process.php. But I want us to keep something in mind. This is beyond the scope of the class. This part, what happens here? There's no file called process.php. That's the first thing. There's no file called process.php. That's the server side. It's beyond the scope of what you are doing at the moment. But I want us to know that you have an action, and inside this action, you put the name of the file you are submitting to. You put it here. So we are assuming that there is a file called process.php, and when we click on this submit button, it will submit our form to this location, to the file called process.php. So I will refer to page now and we fill our submit. So it's trying to submit it to process.php, but it's telling me that your file couldn't be accessed. Look at this place, process.php. But because there's no file called process.php, like I said, it's beyond the scope of what we are doing at the moment. So because there's no file called process.php, it's telling me that it can't find it. But I just want us to know that you can submit your file somewhere. Let's go back. Next, I will do something. I will come here and I will type something that is not an email address, and I will try to submit. you can see it's telling me that what I have here doesn't look like an email address. That's because of this input type email. Where is it? Type email. Remember when we looked at input then, I told us that the email and the text, they look alike, but in this case now, when you try to submit it, it won't allow you to submit it if it doesn't look like an email address. That's because of this input type email. Then if you want to force your user to fill some part of this input before submitting it, because look at the scenario. Look at this. I will refresh this page and I will try to submit this form, and it will still submit. Even though I didn't fill anything there, I did not fill any of them, and yet it is submitting that form. Maybe you don't want this to happen. Maybe you want the user to at least fill this first name. Like, at least if the user does not fill this place, you don't want to submit the form. So you can do something. You come to this place and put something called required. Required means that this place must be filled before this form is submitted. So if I try to submit this form now without filling the first name, yeah, it won't allow me to. It's telling me please fill in this field. So it's forcing me. If I fill this now, I can submit the form. So if I want everything to be required, all I need to do is I will just go to all of them and put required. So now I have to fill all of them before this form is submitted. If I try to submit now, it won't allow me. So let me fill the first name and try to submit. It's not allowing me because I need to fill the last name also. Let me fill this. It's not allowing me because I need to fill the email address. Let me fill this. It's telling me that it needs to have @ so I will just say @gmail.com. So this will go. This doesn't mean that this is a valid email address. No. But what it's just trying to tell me is that this thing should look like an email address. The front end or what we are doing, HTML cannot verify whether this email address is active or not. It can't. But it can know, it's able to know whether it looks like an email address or whether it has the format of an email address or not. But it doesn't know whether that email address is active or not. Again, that is server-side programming. That's beyond the scope of what you are doing presently. So it looks like an email address, so it will pass it to allow me to. So it's telling me I need to fill the password. So let me fill this. So now I'm able to submit the form. Let's go back. Let's look at something interesting. Remember I said something the other time that when you submit this form is being submitted to this file called process.php. So the question is, how does process.php, although we are not going to go into this part, but I think it's very important that we look at one more attribute here. How does process.php know, how does it know the content of this input? How does it differentiate the content of this input from the content of this input, from the content of this input? Since all the input will be submitted to process.php, how then is it able to differentiate what is here? What I mean is this. If I come here and I type Taiwo here, and I come here and I type Abidakun here, so and I submit this form, how will process.php now, if I try to submit it, okay, let me fill the password. How will process.php know that the Taiwo here is for first name and the Abidakun here is for last name? Remember, the text you have there is just for you as the user to know what to do. It's just for the user to know where to type their information. So how does process.php is able to know that the Taiwo here is for the first name and what you have here is for the last name and what you have here is for the email and what you have here is for the password? How is he able to know? That's the next thing we want to do. So you come here and you add a new attribute to all of them. Maybe let me just remove this required for now. I can say name is first name. If you still want to put required, you can. If you want to, but I just feel there's no need. So name, you give it a name attribute. This everything we'll be doing so far has been for the front end, but this name attribute is mainly for this process.php, is mainly for the back end, so that this process.php, we know that whatever we have inside this input should be assigned to first name. So we can come here again and add a new attribute called name and call it maybe last name. Then come here, add a new attribute called name, and let's say email, and I'll add a new attribute name and call it password. So when we submit this form now, it now knows that whatever we put here should be assigned to passwords. Look at the difference. You will realize something now. I will refresh this page and I will fill this form. So when I fill this, check this place. Something has changed. It now knows that Taiwo should go to the first name. You can see that we have first name equals to Taiwo and last name equals to Abidakun and email equals to this. Now there's a danger. Password equals to, when I was filling this password, you didn't see what I typed, but somehow it's at the top of my page. It's at the top of my page. We are going to fix that soon. Again, with this name now, this process.php now knows that whatever you put inside this place should be assigned to first name. Whatever you put here should be assigned to last name. Whatever you put here should be assigned to email, and whatever you put here should be assigned to password. So it now knows that, and that's exactly what is happening here. So this is doing that for you. But there's a danger. Password should be hidden. Nobody should know the value of password, because if someone is behind me looking at my system or looking at me or peeping from my back, the person will know this password, which is bad. So we are going to fix that now. Scroll up. We come here and give it another attribute called method. I will explain here. Now we have different methods, but the two most used ones are get and post. Get and post. Now when you don't put any method, the default method is get, meaning that if I say method equals to get, this is the same thing as not putting method at all. They are the same. We have two major, we have other methods, but the two most used ones are get and post. If you don't put anyone, the default method is get. And the way get works is that it's going to display whatever you put here and display it on the browser like this, which is bad. For security reasons, you don't use get to submit password. You don't use get to submit PIN. Sensitive information, you don't use get. So instead you use post. Let's see what happens when we change it to post. I'll say method is post. Now I'll save it and refresh now. Go back. Refresh. Now fill this form again. Good. It has submitted that without displaying it here. It has submitted it to process.php. But now I'm safer. Please never use get to submit sensitive information. Never use get to submit sensitive information. So that's about get and post. Any question? So let's quickly revise this form. Let me see if anybody is raising hand to ask a question. Okay. Now let's quickly revise this part. We looked at input. We started the class, tonight's class with input, and we started from what we've done for now. I told us that an input looked like this. Initially, we removed this name attribute. Then we have different methods of input. We have type text, we have type number, we have type email, we have type password. Then we proceeded to tell us that you need to introduce label for the sake of those using screen readers, and this is how a label works. You come here and say a label. Now for give it any name. So you come to this input and give it an ID of any name also. Whatever text you put here must be the ID here. So whatever, now we come to this place and type a text. The text here is what will be displayed on the screen, but the text here is for those using screen readers. So when they click on this, it will automatically bring you to this input. Then next, I told us that we can what's it called? You put if you have multiple inputs, you put them inside a form to tell them that they are together. So you put all the inputs together in a form, and of course this BR is just to break it to the next line. So this is input type submit. This type submit is this button that we have here. Is this button we have here. So when you click on that button, it will submit this form. Then the next question is to where is it submitting it to? We solve that by introducing action. Action equals to the name of the file, of your server-side file. Here we are assuming that there is a file called process.php. Even though it doesn't exist, we are assuming that there's a file called process.php. And when you click on that button, the form will be submitted to that place. Then we also talked about using required. Required means that input must be filled before you submit this form. Then we talked about method. We said there are two main ones, which is get and post. And I told us that you don't submit password or sensitive information like PIN and all of that using get. Instead, you use post to submit sensitive information. If all you are just taking is first name, last name, fine. You can use get. But once you are doing it, password, never use get. Any question before we leave this part?
Please, I have one question.
Okay, sir.
What if you want to save it in your system? That process of PHP server.
What if
And you have a way to save, you want to save it in your system that you are practicing and in your desktop.
you want to save what?
I mean, can you have the information? That
Okay.
process of PHP. What if you want to save it something like Access or Excel?
You want to save it
Is
on your
it possible
device.
to save it? Yes, yes.
That is what happens. That happens
Doing
inside this project.php. And like I said, that's beyond the scope of this class. Like what we are doing presently is another thing entirely. That's server-side program, but that's back end. We are still at the front end. But inside this project.php, you can get all those information and save them in your database or somewhere in your system or anywhere. You can even save them in maybe in Excel sheet or anything you want to do with that. But that's beyond what you are currently doing. So whatever happens here, you can do whatever you want with the information, but we are not going into that. What you are just doing is how to get the information and submit it to the process.php. Do you understand it, sir?
yes, sir.
Okay, sir. So let's proceed to two things. I think we have a few things left for tonight. So I will remove all of this. And we want to talk about table. HTML table. This table is similar to the table you have in MS Word. So I will pull up MS Word now. So while we are waiting, let me explain. Okay, it's up. So I want to create something that looks like this. Insert want to insert a table. Okay. I want to create this table, something that looks like this. So maybe I want this to be name, maybe department and school. So this will be maybe Taye Kende do. Then department software. Then hardware. Then let's say CSC. Then school. Let's say we have UI. Maybe we have SQL. Maybe we have Uniline. So we have these three things. Of course, these are headings, so we can make them both. So we want to do this thing in HTML. This is a table. You want to see how to do the same thing in HTML. Let's go. To create a table, you open a tag called table. So let's open the table tag. This table tag stands for the whole table. This table can be divided into two. Number one, you have the head and you have the body. This is the body. Everything here is the body. This is like the heading of the table. Why this like the body of the table? So we do something. We say T head. That is for the head. After the head, we have the T body. So the head and the body, we've segmented it. Is this the head and this the body? So let's first fix the head and let's do this. Inside the head, we have a row. This is a row. This whole table has 4 rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Like this is a row 1. Everything here from here to the end like this is another row 2. Then from here to the end is another row 3. Then from here to the end is another row, making 4. But this first row is inside the head, while the remaining 3 rows, they are inside the body. So let's get out of the head. We go to the head and say TR. TR stands for table row. That is, everything you want to put inside this TR, they are all together on the same row. I come again. We have a single row in our T head. Let's assume we have 2 rows in our T head. It would have been 2. But there's only 1 row in our table head, which is just this. So because of that, you create 1 TR inside the T head. That row has 3 columns. Column 1, column 2, column 3. That single row has 3 columns. So for now, I'll just put something here. I'll create the 3 columns, which is TD. TD stands for table data. It's like you use that to represent each column. So column 1, column 2, column 3. Note that the 3 TD you have here, they are all inside this TR. Let me write them together so that it's easier to realize. What's that? So we have 3 TDs here. This is the first one, this is the second TD, and this is the third TD. The 3 of them, they are inside this TR. So the 3 of them are inside this row. So I can now put name, which is, this is the first TD. So just to make it easier to read, I'll say department, and I'll put there school. I come again. So we have 3 TDs. So, and in the first TD we have name, in the second TD we have department, in the third TD we have school. But they are all inside this TR, meaning that they will be on the same row. If you get to the browser, you will see the results. So they are all together on the same row. Don't worry, we are coming back to these bars, these lines. We are coming back to these lines. But then the major thing is they are all on the same row like this. So we are done with the table head. Other things we want to impute, they are inside the table body. The table body has 3 rows, so let's fix the 3 rows together. We go to the table body and we create the first TR, which is the first row, the second TR, which is the second row, and the third TR, which is the third row. So we've created row 1, row 2, and row 3. The first row, which is the row 1 now, has 3 columns, meaning we have 3 TDs. Let's fix that together. We have the first TD, which is the value inside there is Taye. It has another TD. The value there, please don't mix columns and rows together. This is 1 row, 1 row, 1 row, 1 row. So it has 3 columns. So the first one is Taye, the second one is software, and the third one is UI. So the second one is software, and the third TD is UI. So I'm done with that. So if I go to the browser now, I refresh, we have that set it. Let's go to the remaining 2. So let's go to the remaining 2. We have this Kende, hardware, and SQI. Let's fix that. So we have 3 TDs also in the second row. So let's fix it. TD, Kende, another TD, hardware, another TD, SQI. So we are done with the second row. So refresh and you see the results. Good. Let's go to the last one. We have Idowu CSC Unilorin. Let's do that together. Idowu CSC Unilorin. That's inside this row. Idowu CD CSC CD. So we have this. Refresh. Good. We have this. Next is we want to bring these bars, these lines. Let's bring that in. So you go to the top of the table and you give it an attribute called border. Border. It depends on how thick you want it to be. I can say border 2 is to be thicker than border 1. So if I use 1, it's not going to be thick, but to give it border. So next is I want these ones to be bold. The first row, the one inside the T head. Because I want it to be bold, these ones will not be TD. Instead, they will be T-ish. All the columns in that row will be T-ish. So that will make it bold. Let's go to the browser and refresh now. Good. I think we are done. So let's quickly revise it. If you want to create a table, you start with this table. Then you go to, if you can split it, if your table has head and body. If your table does not, because it's possible, there might just be some table. Imagine a table that looks like this. One, let's say Tolu. 2, let's say James. 3, let's say John. Oh, sorry. Let's say John. Just imagine this. So this table does not have row. This table does not have head and body. Since it doesn't, you can just come here and start from your row. Or better still, you can only give it T body without giving it T head. You can just give it T body. or you just start from your TR immediately. If you give it T-body, of course, all your TR will be inside this T-body. This table has how many rows? 1, 2, 3. So come here, give it 2 rows. 1, 2, 3. So in the first row now, we have how many columns? 2. We have 2 columns. So you give it TD, TD, 1, TD, which is 3. So we are done with the first one. Let's go to the browser and see our results. We have this. Good. Let's go to the second one. We have 2, TD, 2, TD, jumps. Then let's go to the third one. TD, 3, TD, jump. So we have this. Next is we want to bring in the bars. So you come here and say to the table order. This time around I will use 2 to make it thicker than the first. It's a bit thicker. So you have this. When you get to CSS, you'll be able to style it and make it even prettier than this. Then maybe I want to space the 2 tables. Maybe they are too close. So I can just come to the end of this space and put a BR. BR. The BR will help me to break it. So, any question? Do you have any question? Okay, so that's about table. That's about table. Now, before we call it a day, I need to quickly explain 2 more tags, but those ones are very simple tags. We want to explain these 2 tags, div and span. They are very, very important. Very, very, very important tag. But before we go into these 2 tags, I want to explain a concept. Because some elements, we call them block elements or block tags, something like that. We call them block tags. Why some other elements are called inline elements? Let's discuss the difference between these 2. Block elements are selfish elements. They are very selfish. They don't share their lines with other items. Inline elements, they are selfless elements. They share their lines with other items. Again, block elements are very selfish. They don't share their lines with other items. Inline elements are selfless. They share their lines with other items. Let me give us examples. So there are some tags that are block. There are some other tags that are inline. So block elements, they don't share their lines. Inline, they share their lines. Example is this. Let me use H2 for instance, and I put hello. I will come to the end of this H2. I will put word. This is H2 and this is word. Now, they are on the same line in my code. So maybe you expect them to be on the same line on the browser. But if you notice something, this hello it ensures that itself and this word, they are not on the same line. It's pushing that word to another line. That's because this H2 has taken over the whole line till the end of this place. It has taken over the whole line. It doesn't share its line. So this is a block element. Block elements don't share their lines. In fact, for you to say how interesting it is, I'll put I before it. This is I, this is H2, and this is word. So I will refresh. Look at something. Just because it doesn't want to share, this hello does not want to share the line with I. Instead, it decides to move to the next line. Then it doesn't want to share the line with word. It's pushed that word to the next line. So all the H tags, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, they are all block elements. Your P tag paragraph is a block element. What else is a block element? P tag, H2. Okay. But inline elements, on the other hand, they share their lines with other items. Part of that is your strong. So let's say hi. Sorry, let's say I have I am Taye Abida. So, and I want this Taye to be bold. Remember, I said you can easily use strong to make the texts bold. At least for now, when you start doing CSS, you will see a better way to do it. So, I am Taye Abida. This Taye will be bold. Then it is like all of these things will still be on the same line. When we get to the browser, they are still on the same line. That's because strong is an inline element, and impute is an inline element. You are what's it called? Your em, which is used to italicize something, is an inline element. So just keep in mind that some of these elements are block elements, whilst others are inline elements. Block elements don't share their lines. Inline elements share their lines. I just want us to know that. So let's now go to these things. Div and span. This div is an inline is a block element. While the span is an inline element. Div is a block element. Span is an inline element, but they do similar things. Both of them are just boxes. They are just containers that you keep items. A div is a container, and you can put items in this container. So also, a span is a container, and you can put items in this span. But if you keep item in the div, that item is not going to share its line with other elements. Let me give you an instance. I'll create a div. I will keep item here. Hello. I'll now say, how are you? So because a div is a block element, when you get to the browser, you will see this how are you on the next line. But if it were to be span, they will be on the same line. So that's just the basic difference. When you get to CSS, which is the next thing you'll be doing when you are done with HTML, you will understand this meaning of these containers better. But they are containers, and we use them a lot. Div and span, we use them a lot. So a div is a container but the container is a block element container, while a span is an inline element container. Any question before we call it a day? Do you have any question? Okay, so we are done with the most important part of CSS of HTML tags. We can't check all the tags. HTML has a lot of tags, but like I said in one of our classes, we are going to look at the important ones and how they work, and for you to understand how they work. We've come to the end of the second phase. The third phase continues tomorrow on our WhatsApp group. Any question? Thank you very much. We will communicate with us on the WhatsApp group. Have a lovely night rest.